Yo, what's up everybody, and welcome back to a little bit more Dota history. Today we're going to have a look at IG versus Na'Vi, Game 2 of the Winners Bracket semi-finals at the International 2012, or better known as the game that has the play. This game is exciting and a little bit weird. But before we get into that, I want to thank you guys for your support on the last video. It actually did really well, much better than I expected it to, which is fantastic, and that's only because you guys supported it so much. But what's important now is that we keep that up, because otherwise YouTube is gonna be like, well, the first video did well, but the second one didn't. Alright, down we go. And that would be bad. Because I do want to continue making these videos, because there's so much good Dota history to come. Honestly, there are so many good games. Well, let's get into this match, but not before you give the video a thumbs up, so we can continue doing this. Maybe, share it with a friend. Maybe let me know what games you want to see in the future. Alright then, so what do we have here? As I already mentioned, this is TI2. TI2 is a very different era of Dota than what we have today. So get ready for something that is going to look substantially different. This is Na'Vi versus IG. Na'Vi and IG were in the same group, which means they've actually already played each other. The first meeting did not go so well for Na'Vi. They got beaten 0-2. This is game 2. The first game did not go so well for Na'Vi. They got absolutely destroyed in a match that was almost embarrassing. That may sound harsh, that may sound mean, but I think it's actually kind of appropriate here. IG horribly outdrafted Na'Vi. It was rough. It was so bad that Na'Vi felt compelled to put their anti-mage into a solo mid lane, where he obviously got destroyed. And then they ended up GGing out after 16 minutes. And that was not an early GG. That game was over. So it was a rough first game. Going into the second game, Na'Vi needs to come up with something to try and fight back against IG. IG has been looking absolutely fantastic this entire tournament. They went 13-1 in their group stages, compared to Na'Vi's 8-6. IG won their group, Na'Vi tied for third. Now, this is round 2 of the winners side. So both teams already beat another team. IG ended up beating Evil Geniuses 2-1, which IG was expected to beat. And Na'Vi beat Team DK 2-1, which you could argue that Team DK was favored there. Team DK went 11-3 in their group stage, and they're definitely a bit of a favorite team for this tournament. Now, Team DK is a team that I think sadly isn't as well known these days anymore. In case you're not familiar with the name DK, you might be familiar with one of their players, Burning, and his anti-mage, the Burning anti-mage. That's who Na'Vi beat to make it to this stage. If Na'Vi loses this match, they will drop into the losers bracket. This is much more punishing at this tournament than it is in future tournaments. Because during TI2, the losers bracket was best of ones all the way up to round 5, or loser semis. Which means whichever team loses this best of 3, which the winner's side is all best of 3s, but whichever team loses this best of 3 will then have to play a best of 1 in the loser's side against E-Home, which is a terrifying prospect. Another fun fact about this stage of the tournament, which is why I think this game was emotionally really impactful, is that Na'Vi is the only non-Asian team still left in the tournament. It is the only Western team that has made it into the top 8 teams of TI2. So for a lot of the Western audiences, that made Na'Vi kind of their team, right? That's who we were cheering for. And yeah, it's a brutal tournament for non-Asian players. So let's see what Na'Vi can do. Na'Vi did already do something a little bit weird in this draft. They picked a Juggernaut. Now Juggernaut during this era is a very different hero, even though he looks really similar. The spin is the same, the ward is the same, the crit is the same, so in that regard it's actually not that different. But what is really critically different is his ultimate. Omni Slash these days is based on your attack damage and attack speed, and it just lets you attack, and it has a duration during which you Omni Slash and you get out as many attacks as you can. And you know how Omni Slash works. Omni Slash back then was different. The way it worked is you had 3 attacks at level 1 and then 6 and then 9. 3 attacks that came out from Omni Slash. And those attacks had a certain delay between them, and those attacks did a set amount of damage. They were independent from your hero's actual attack damage. You could get additional attacks in between the Omni Slashes, which is a really strange property, but basically Juggernaut would pause between Omni Slash hits and then you could attack during those. So Juggernaut could still get some attacks in based on his attack damage, but the majority of Omni Slash damage was actually not based on his attacking ability at all. Which means Juggernaut didn't need to build right click. And in fact, that is what teams have been using him for. They've not really been using him as a carry, they have been using him more as a pushing enabler, where the Q clears out a creep wave and then the healing ward manages to keep your team strong. Oh, this is gonna be close? Alright, there you go, get out of there, Shadow Shaman, play it safe. You will be just fine. But yes, so the healing ward was really the thing that people picked Juggernaut for. Although, that's maybe an exaggeration, because Juggernaut wasn't really picked that much. Let me be clear here. Juggernaut is not necessarily a good hero. Na'Vi as a team is a bit famous for drafting things that aren't necessarily good, but still making them work. In particular, of course, the prime example there is the Dandy Pudge. So we'll see how this goes down. Oh, the Juggernaut is gonna run into the Darkseer there. I'm surprised that Darkseer didn't try to force out a spin right there with a quick little Iron Shell. Although, it is always worth keeping in mind that at this time, it is just kind of tricky to actually have enough mana, and you gotta be a little bit careful of how you use it. You may notice something a little bit unusual here. We've got the mid Rubik. This is a hero that's also played in a bit of a deceptive role. So Rubik is very much played as a support most of the time. But sometimes teams will pick him as a core. Although the role that Rubik fills as a core tends to be more of a supplemental core. As in, he tends to fill in a lane core position for a jungler, or for another hero that will then take over the actual core position later. So in this particular match, you will see that Na'Vi have an Enchantress, which is jungling, but will also be supporting the Juggernaut down here. And then they have an Enigma, who is now currently leaving his top lane and moving into the mid/jungle to kind of like help out there and maybe get some farm there. Just pay attention to the yellow dot on the minimap there. This may seem weird, why is the Enigma just leaving the top lane? It's actually very normal. It is very standard for the offlaners to just kind of give up on the offlane. There's really very few heroes that can actually properly contest the offlane, and the prime example for that is this purple man right here, who's currently in a bit of trouble. Gonna be caught out by Puppy and by AA. I think is that Arsard? Is that how you say that name? Sorry, it's been 10 years. But I believe that's Arsard. But yes, so Puppy comes in with those creeps. Now you may notice like, oh my god, it's 2 minutes into the game and Puppy has 2 big camp creeps. Yes, 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 yes. That's why Chen and Enchantress were absolutely devastating during this era. They were so strong because you could just grab these huge creeps and immediately go for pushes. And you can see that's what the Radiant is doing. They are immediately going for the push at this bottom lane and pushing down this tower to try and, apply pressure there. Although I don't know if they can... Wow, they're just actually straight going for it. Look at that. Even using the spin there. Gonna go ahead and just see if they can actually take this tower right away. This may seem weird. Why are they taking this tower? During this era, there was not a lot of money available. It was just really difficult to farm. There was enough money on the map for one, maybe 1.5 cores. The rest of your team is just gonna have to be happy with brown boots. They'll just have to live with that. What that means is that the teams were desperately looking for other ways to find resources. They needed to get money on their supports because that way you as a team can become stronger than the enemy team, obviously, right? And that's where the towers come in. During this tournament, pushing was king. Early pushing was king. You wanted to take down the enemy buildings as much as possible. You can see IG is doing the same thing here. They're using the Naga Siren to push down the top tower, while Na'Vi is pushing down the bottom tower. Now this is where I want to talk about the draft for a moment. If we have a look at IG's lineup, you can see some really powerful heroes. Let me tell you the top 10 picks of the International 2 in terms of picks and bans, so top 10 contest rate. Darkseer, Rubik, Naga Siren, Lycanthrope, yes, he was called Lycanthrope back then, not just Lycan, but Lycanthrope, Chen, Leshrac, Nature's Prophet, Invoker, Tidehunter, and Venomancer. You may notice that IG have Darkseer, Naga Siren, and Tidehunter. That is number 1, number 3, and number 9 respectively. Their team is stacked, and that is a nice synergy of heroes as well. Oh, they're gonna go ahead and see if they can get Soul over there. On the other side, you've got Na'Vi, who's got Juggernaut, who's been picked 3 times so far. So, that's of course, not necessarily the best look, especially since Na'Vi got outdrafted before already. Overall, you could very safely make the argument that Na'Vi is already on the back foot, just due to the draft. Now, you may have noticed another thing about that list of heroes. There's a lot of summon-based heroes and a lot of pushing-based heroes. Yes, again, this meta is all about pushing, it is all about breaking down the enemy towers. It is not kill-heavy, because teams are not necessarily looking to contest these towers. They are just looking to get as many from the enemy as possible. And that means that summons are fantastic, because heroes are pretty weak, especially in the early game, so pushing is hard. But summons are strong. Shadow Shower and Wards are just always gonna be good. Same is true for the Chen creeps, or the Enchantress creeps, or for Venomancer Wards, or for Nature's Prophet summons, or for Lycan Wolves. I think you get the idea. Lycan in particular can also go for Necronomicon, of course. So it turns out that summons are really good because you can use them to push down towers early, and you can push down towers early. You can push down the towers early to make sure your team has more money, and then you can use that to take racks. And if you take racks, you probably just win on the spot. Racks are really important because heroes are again fairly weak. All right, cool. I think that's all of the core base information established that you really need to know. Now they're gonna go ahead and start pushing down this bottom tower yet again. As mentioned before, this is the priority, right? You wanna try and take down these buildings. And you may also notice the Juggernaut is going for a bit of a weird item build. Boots into a Vladimir's, and then I can already tell you he's later gonna build a Vanguard. Again, the hero doesn't really need to build damage because the ultimate has inbuilt damage. Yes, you can try to play a carry Juggernaut, but you don't necessarily have to. It's not required. IG's lineup is scary for one more reason, by the way. There's a very interesting quirk with how the Naga Siren and Darkseer interact. The Naga Siren ultimate puts enemies to sleep. And while they're asleep, you can't do anything to them, right? You can't stun them, you can't deal damage, they are invincible. Well, there's some exceptions to that. Vacuum is the biggest one. You can vacuum sleeping teams and without needing to wake them up. You don't need to time it. You can do it while they are asleep and then set up for whatever you want afterwards. Which means an Enigma Naga Siren Darkseer combo is absolutely devastating, right? Because you can just put the enemy team to sleep, vacuum them in, cast Black Hole as the song runs out, and then you already have them all there. They never get an opportunity to react. Oh, Dandy, hanging in there? Come on, buddy. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, they managed to survive that. But yeah, that's a really scary element of IG's team, and it's something that I think needs to be kept in mind. Keep an eye out for that. Oh, they find themselves the puck. Now, talking about IG, the Naga Siren is very likely gonna go for a Radiance. Now, going for Radiance can vary a little bit in terms of how you build into it. You can see this Naga Siren right now is actually opting to go for Mana Boots first. Radiance is a very common item build. It is just nice because you can use it to push down multiple lanes with the illusions. Mana Boots are great because they allow you to continue staying in a lane, and also Naga Siren's E was still inactive at this time. So the way that ability worked, it was pretty much the same. It was just an AoE nuke that reduced enemies' armor. But also what it did is it triggered off of all the illusions, and you could just activate it manually, right? You just cast it, which is nice because you could use it to nuke people down whenever you wanted to. You could spread out your illusions and, hit multiple camps at once, all of that good stuff. But it does also mean that you actually need mana for it. And so Mana Boots were not unusual on a Naga Siren at all. In fact, I would say they're pretty standard. Shadow Shaman is now level 6. We already saw one of the wards being used. Those wards are very important. You may notice that summons are good and pushing is good. And what are some of the best summons for pushing? That's right, Shadow Shaman wards, right? So that's a really powerful little synergy there. Oh, that was unfortunate. Nice song, nice song. Very good. But yeah, they can definitely use those wards very effectively to break down buildings. But right now, Na'Vi is not looking that good. Honestly, the Naga Siren is out farming the Juggernaut. The towers are looking fairly even, right? Both sides have taken down one building so far. And actually, look at that. IG is trying to defend this mid. They probably realize that right now Na'Vi has so many strong summons. They have the Enchantress Keeps, they have the Eidolons, they have the Shadow Shaman wards, and then of course the healing with the Juggernaut to keep that all going, that if they don't do anything about this, they will just kind of lose a lot of buildings, and that would be bad. Oh, does the Naga Siren go down? Yeah, Naga Siren does go down. Very good. But that's something you need to kind of deal with, right? Because you'll just fall behind too much if you don't. They get the puck as well. Na'Vi is definitely doing a good job with these big team gangs. They are able to rotate around the map nicely and catch people out. This is honestly Na'Vi's greatest strength. They are a team that is very capable of playing aggressively. I think that's because they are much better at the kind of micro team organization. What they can do really well is they can kind of like send one player in and then have other players to like come and back up, but they don't necessarily need the entire team to do it, which is a bit unusual. During this era, most teams are very used to playing 4 protect 1 strategies, where all of the emphasis is put on a single hero and making sure that single hero gets to thrive. You can see that from IG. There's a Naga Siren. That Naga Siren is what matters. Yeah, there's other heroes too. There's a Puck, there's a Tidehunter, Darkseer. Yeah. But like, they're not really gonna do the carrying. Those heroes are there to make sure that the Naga Siren gets to do what she wants to do. This may not look like a wild team draft. This may not look that unusual. Even if you saw something like this in modern Dota, you wouldn't then think to yourself, crazy strategy there. But what's important there is just that it's a large trend. Every team is like this. There aren't really any exceptions to that. Except, well, kind of a silly statement, but the only exception really is the way Na'Vi plays. Na'Vi does put more emphasis on multiple cores. If you have a look at the Lasteds and the Knights, you can see that they have 3 heroes that are in about the same range, and that's pretty common for them. This also stays true for future tournaments, by the way. I think this was really one of the reasons why Na'Vi succeeded in early Dota the way they did. Oh, nice, they get so right there. The Naga Siren did definitely kind of just, put herself in a bad position. Is going to use the sleep to get out. No TP. You gotta buy TPs. Yeah, there's no TP slot, obviously, right? This is TI2. There's a lot of the modern stuff missing. So if you don't have a TP, you just can't TP. And you can see here, again, Na'Vi, they're just continuing their push. They do have just a lot of healing with that healing ward. It just keeps their team going. And you can also see that, of course, the Enchantress is great at supplying the team with additional healing and then just survivability through having the summons. But yeah, this group just breaking down these buildings. And to me personally, this is a big reason why I actually really like TI2. I think this style of Dota is actually pretty fun to watch. Yeah, there are not that many kills, but that doesn't mean the teams aren't doing anything. They are doing things. They are moving around the map. They're killing towers. They're being active. The kills may be low, but the action isn't. And so I personally really like TI2 for that. Although some matches also tend to go kind of long. This pushing style also defines what kind of carries are good. So the 2 peak carries of TI2 are really Naga Siren and then Morphling. Morphling is fantastic because he still has the old ultimate where he creates an illusion that he can then illusion himself into, right? So you can reactivate the ultimate to absorb the illusion and appear wherever it was. The nice thing about that ability is that it lets him move around the map pretty actively while farming and still also always either be safe or be able to engage in a fight, which is really valuable because you can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. You don't need to necessarily play super safe. That's what you can see from the Naga Siren right now. She's struggling a bit because she's forced to play very defensively. She picks up what is it called? The Orb of Health, I don't know. She picks up a piece of a heart. She could build this into a Vanguard, which wouldn't be crazy. But one of the problems Soul has right now is just doesn't really have a way of actually dealing damage to Na'Vi. And that is the overall problem with IG's lineup. It's actually not that heavy on its damage output, and they're struggling to take down the Radiant. In particular, the Juggernaut providing a lot of healing, and then also the magic immunity, of course, makes it extra difficult to actually deal with them. Havost, you can see here, picks up the Vanguard and actually decides not to go for Vladimir's, gets a Soul Ring instead. Look at that. Yeah, no, I expected that Vladimir's considering that build-up. But that makes sense too, that way you have a lot of mana, you can continuously use all of your abilities, which would usually be a bit of a problem for the Juggernaut. I did watch this game, by the way, I watched this game twice before doing the commentary today, and I still always find new stuff. Isn't that interesting? I don't know, I love watching these old games because there's just so much there, right? Okay, they're gonna go ahead and continue their push, and you can see it, right? Every time their cooldowns are ready, they go for another push. They go for another push. The Shadow Shaman wards are down. All right, time to break down a tower. It is all about getting that money to your team. These towers are just big bags of gold that are sitting on the map, ready to be picked up. So they're gonna go ahead and continue pushing, and down goes the tower. And you can also see that immediately after taking that tower, they start moving into the bottom area. That can mean either the bottom tower, depending, or Roshan. It seems to be the bottom tower right now. And they saw an Enchantress there, I think, but then decided that, the Enchantress then TP'd out. So this is probably the big fight that everybody is excited for, but it's coming up, and it's coming up already. I know it seems kind of early. It's 17 minutes into the game. I'm gonna go and make the audio a bit louder for this.
Waiting in the wing, Navi's about to be caught. Oh, there's the sleep, the surge, he catches everyone. Oh, this could be a total disaster. Vacuum in, Ravage on everyone. The black hole as well. Light of heaven turns it around. Ravage as well. Stolen by Dendy. Are you kidding me? They turn it around. 4 heroes dead. 4
heroes dead. Chuan trying to survive. Chuan's gonna go down. Puppy talked about the Naga counter. It's Light of Heaven with his BKB. They turn it around. I don't even know how they're gonna do it.
Alright, let's go back and watch that again. But this time let's talk about it. I don't know, I just thought it might be fun to actually see it. So, the Enigma has a BKB, which is very early, by the way. 17 minutes for a BKB is pretty intense, but the nice thing here is that the Enigma just rushed it. Didn't really bother with anything else, just went straight BKB. Now, this is where it might be reasonable, or I don't know, is this... Okay, so... This play is one that's hyped up a lot as being really important and really critical to the game, or at least that's what is implied, I think, with the way it's presented. And it's again, it's the play, right? But if I'm completely honest, if we have a look at this, the way this goes down, this is nice, right? That is a very good sleep. They have them all caught out. Again, you can see in a moment... There's the vacuum in through the sleep. They're still affected by the sleep. And then as they come out of it, they ravage, but immediately the black hole. However, look at how healthy Na'Vi actually is. Sure, that was of course because they were able to use their healing and so on. But let's be completely honest. Aside from Puppy, pretty much nobody was actually on the verge of death, right? Just like have a look at the HP. It's the only one that drops low at all is Puppy. The black hole, of course, is fantastic, although I would describe that really as more of a terrible play on the side from IG. If you have a look at this, they come in here, they get the vacuum, which is of course great, but frankly speaking, they should have known that the Enigma has a BKB. And then here's the Ravage, but you can see BKB is active. And then they just group up on top of the Enigma. The puck even throws in the orb and then blinks into the black hole. And Dandy steals a Ravage, which, frankly speaking, that should never happen, right? You should Ravage in an Anchor Smash. And it's important here, again, that the... Here's the Ravage. Ah, okay, never mind. He was actually cancelled out of the Anchor Smash. Although realistically speaking, he could have used it without moving, but trying to get away from the Enigma. But yeah, this fight, of course, is in a way game deciding. But it is not game deciding in the way that Na'Vi was losing and now they are winning. Na'Vi was actually doing great. You can see that IG struggled immensely with that fight. Even if there was no black hole, I am not confident they win that. Because they just don't have the damage output, really. They already used all their stuff. What else would they have done afterwards? I don't really know much. I don't know. Maybe they probably would have killed Puppy. I think there's almost a guarantee of that. But you can see here in this fight, there's actually no new items. Right? Abilities are on cooldown now, I guess. But still, they managed to take down the Enchantress. And other than that, IG is simply lacking the damage. They just can't take down Na'Vi. And this is where we go back to a point I made at the beginning, where I said that Na'Vi was outdrafted. That was a bit of a misdirect. Na'Vi definitely 100% won this draft. They did a great job, and I think they were really ahead of their time here. They drafted a team that is very, very strong in countering what the meta at the time was. And in fact, going forward in this tournament, the Juggernaut ends up being a bit of like a Na'Vi special. right? They pick him here, and they actually pick him 2 more times later in the tournament. Being the only team at the main stage to pick Juggernaut. It is only Na'Vi, nobody else ever plays him. So it's kind of interesting how that works out, right? Like they kind of saw this weakness in the common strategy where it is very dependent on a single hero. And if you just manage to shut down that hero and then bulk up a little bit, get some healing going, then you just don't really need to worry about them killing you. And if they can't kill you, and if you have a look at the items here as well, right? If I may pause for a moment. So here are our items, right? You can see power treads, mech, and an urn. Power treads, Vanguard, Magic Wand, and now building into an Aghanim. The Rubik has power treads, Magic Wand, power treads, BKB, and then of course the Shadow Shaman with, doesn't have that much, but that's okay, right? It's a Shadow Shaman. He's not gonna be rich. They're just really, really tanky. They like put all of the emphasis on survival. Now, of course, the Dire, you can see that they just don't really have anything. But, they're losing. If you're losing at TI2, you don't have a lot of money. Also, isn't this wild to look at? These items, these are 20-minute items. Even on the winning side. And it's just nothing. It's comparatively nothing. You can see Enigma even going for a Bracer at 20 minutes into the game. These days, Bracer needs to like double its stats to be worth its value. And that is the buff Bracer. Bracer was worse back then. Alright then. Also, look at that. Isn't that fun? The Enchantress actually completely skipping Untouchable. And I think that makes a lot of sense. What do you really need it for here? Well, maybe a single point into it would have been good, but it's all about pushing, it's all about keeping your team alive, it's about healing. So, get the healing, get the creeps, get going. You can see here that the Naga Siren is closing in on the Radiance, but she's still a bit away. And honestly, her progress has been minimal. She's just not been able to really make any sort of significant strides there. Chavost finally actually goes and picks up that Vladimir's. That's probably why I thought he was going to pick it up earlier, because I knew he had one at some point. But yeah, so he gets his Vladimir's now, and they're going to go ahead and go for Roshan. Here's another fun little quirk. Sleep does not sleep Roshan. And you can just go in there and actually go for it. I don't know what IG was doing here as well. It's a little bit odd. You may notice that Shao, I think how you say that? The Naga Siren actually snatches the Aegis. So Na'Vi gets the kill on Roshan. I don't know why IG didn't necessarily commit there, right? Like either you go for Roshan or you don't go for Roshan. But they were just a little bit lost in terms of what they were actually planning on doing. And I think a lot of that comes down to their knowledge that if they take this fight, if they engage in this fight in a more meaningful way, they just can't kill Na'Vi. How do they actually take them down? Yeah, there's no clear answer, right? There's no actual good strategy that they have at this point. They're just so far behind. Good Dream Coil. There's a black hole just on the Tidehunter. But again, Na'Vi is just not going down. Look at that. They're tanking and tanking and tanking. Chavost hanging in there with a sliver of HP. Both teams are now disengaging. Isn't that funny? After all of that, nobody has died. Juggernaut is looking dangerously low. He's gonna run back in. But doesn't have a TP, it seems. Yes, no TP. This is why you always carry a TP, friends. Well, I suppose these days that's not as much of a commitment anymore, right? I mean, you're gonna have a TP in your TP slot. But for years, my friends, carrying a TP was the golden rule. You only have 5 inventory slots. That's why TP boots are good. And they are not good because they give you more movement speed. They are good because they buy you another inventory slot. That's how you have to think about them. If Chavost had a TP right there, he would have been fine. This way IG manages to secure a kill. And you know what, they still have that Aegis. However, this bottom racks is still down, which is obviously really difficult to deal with, and they gotta figure something out to, you know, kind of get back into this game. Look at this, Enigma getting drums now, right? Just continuously building these more supportive, tanking, bulking items. Rubik even picking up a casual Ogre Club now. I'm wondering if that is gonna be for BKB, or if that's just kind of, well, we're gonna end the game soon, so we're gonna go ahead and just get something that gives me some stats, right? Probably also meant for BKB, or I don't know if Rubik actually had an Aghanim's at this time. Interesting. Rubik actually adds something to the strategy as well, because he has his aura, and the aura at this point in the game gave additional magic resistance to his team. So you could just use this to make your team more difficult to kill. They get the Naga Siren right here. BKB is active on the Shadow Shaman. That's wild to see a Shadow Shaman at tier 2 with a BKB. There's the song. Not much comes from it. And they're gonna go ahead and disengage that. Did you see that fun little quirk there? Enchantress enchanted the Naga Siren's illusion, and then when the Naga Siren used her E, that enchanted illusion also used it. There's the Ravage. Return Ravage. Ah, dandy. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now that was just incredibly well done. And they go ahead and they take down IG. And at this point, with this team wipe, that is a second red set of racks guaranteed. And the GG is called. So it's actually a pretty short game. It's only 25 minutes. Isn't that kind of crazy? But yeah, that is the game with the play. I hope you guys enjoyed this. To give you a little bit more information here, Navi ends up winning the next game and then makes it all the way to grand finals by beating LGD in the winners finals, where in the grand finals they actually end up losing to IG. There's a third, well, I guess a second rematch, a third set that these teams play. First they meet in the group stages, then they meet here, and then finally in the grand finals again, where Invictus takes it 3-1. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, I actually put a lot of effort to try and like get some interesting information ready for you, and you know, I have it all on the second screen. I recorded without stream today as well. I just recorded on my own, because that way there's no distractions, and also I can have everything on my second screen and it doesn't take up any space that I need otherwise. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, again, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.